What up, son? It's the tale of the tapes. The fuck life. Saying? Alright, Tale of the Tapes, Season 2, Episode 22. So, today marks 100 artists covered on the podcast. Ooh. So, there's a little bit of a milestone reach for the podcast, and today is also the first episode in covering of Cleveland hip-hop group Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. Since all 5 members qualified and we don't cover any more than 3 individual artists in any one episode on the show, the group obviously has to be broken down into 2 episodes. Today we will start with Flesh and Bone and Busy Bone. So, I feel that it's only right when I cover someone's favorite artist to always extend an invitation to come on the show and break the artist down, see what I had to say, give some input, etc. When we covered Cypress Hill, I told you that 2 of my cousin's favorite hip-hop artists of all time were Be Real and Busy Bone. And ladies and gentlemen, the one and only R. Formsy is back with us to cover one of his favorite hip-hop artists, so welcome back, R. Formsy. Of course. So, just like last time, before we get into Bone Thugs at all, let's talk about what's gone on with you since last time you were on the show. I know it wasn't like all that long ago, but we're closer to halfway through the year now, and I remember we spoke about your very first solo album that dropped in 2020, Time, The Inner Mind Eclipses, which I personally enjoyed. And What's the plan going forward? I know you hinted at a new project in 2022. Are you still optimistic that there will be a sophomore album?
Definitely, 100%.
Solid.
A lot of stuff has been going on. Mainly, the newest one, I should say, is we are moving into a bigger place, which means definitely more room for my own studio.
Yes, I was going to say, you were talking about getting your own studio, which you've always recorded and mixed your own music, but you never really had a studio.
No, this would be first professional sounding.
Not
music.
for nothing, bro, and I'm not going to say that your music, it sounds, perfect, but you did a hell of a job, bro. You don't even have like a microphone or anything. Considering what you're making music on, bro, you did an absolutely hell of a job with what you were working with, for sure.
Thank you, man. I honestly, looking back on it, I'm extremely proud of it. Mainly for that friggin' reason, because it was just GarageBand. That was it.
I know, bro. I know, and I definitely look forward to hearing. If you do wind up getting some better equipment, I would love hearing what that sounds like. And you're pretty unique, bro. You have good artistic ideas. So I think that once you're given more, plugins and features and things that you can add on your songs, you'll probably come up with some cool things to do and shit like that. So
yeah, no, I definitely feel the same way.
I wanted to ask you, what do you anticipate that this next album might sound like? Like, what should we look forward to? Because on the last one, that was a concept unlike anything I've seen before, and we obviously certainly can't expect the same theme again, or we won't get another album until 2031. That was obviously a rare and unique one, so, like, is there any direction for this one, or have you kind of just been making songs?
I've been making songs, but I would say this one has more, I guess, an edge, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
It's more straightforward.
All right.
If that makes any sense. I don't really know how to explain it. I have a lot of songs. It's very unique, and I just feel like it's a level up, or I shouldn't say a level up, just a different road.
Good, bro.
Than what I'm used to. I mean, I do plan on dropping another just straight rap video. It's honest. It's more of a paying homage, I guess, to DMX. It's one of his songs. The beats.
Fair enough, bro. DMX was a legend. Rest in peace to DMX for sure.
Yeah, but I think this thing I'm gonna drop, I'm gonna do a video. I need to remember it. I don't like reading off of the phone if I'm doing a video. I try to remember everything off the top of my head.
Yeah,
so once
I think sometimes the delivery comes out better like that anyway, when you're not really worried about the actual words that you're saying.
Yeah, and it's short and sweet, but I think I do him justice.
Well, I can't wait to hear it, bro. I grew up on DMX. I had DMX's book when I was a little kid. His autobiography or biography, whatever it was. I had that. I think it was called Earl. I had probably every one of his albums ever. I'm not going to say I was the biggest DMX fan the way that I was with Tupac, but DMX was up there, bro. DMX was certainly one of my favorite rappers growing up for sure. So that, not only his death sucks, but it just pains me. I know his whole life story since I read his autobiography and stuff, so it pains me what that guy went through.
Yeah, he was a good friend of Busy Bones as well.
Yeah, yep. Well, I'm excited to hear the video. I'm excited to hear your new album. I look forward to it. And I'll get all your links from you and stuff at the end of the podcast. At the end of the episode, if anybody wants to follow you or listen to your music or whatever, we'll get that all out of the way at the end.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would definitely be cool.
All right, solid. So now, getting into Bone Thugs a little bit, but before we talk about anything that I have to say or any info or anything like that, I want to talk about first what you have to say, because we spoke to you when we did the Cypress Hill episode about how you sound a lot like a mix between Be Real and Busy Bone, and we heard your history with Cypress Hill and Rock Superstar and all that, so I'm curious to hear what's your history at Bone Thugs, how did you get into them, what do you like about them, what members do you prefer, things like that.
Alright, that's pretty cool. I like answering this one because they have a special place in my heart. Because
I know they do, bro. Since the day we started hanging out when we were older, you have been heavy with the Bone Thugs.
Yeah, I must admit, I took my foot off the gas pedal with them recently. I guess because I've been listening to them for so long. But
they have a tremendous amount of material, bro.
Yeah, a lot.
You'll get around to listening to it, bro. You're not gonna leave these Bone Thugs albums unlistened to.
I listen to them, but I haven't recently.
Have you heard the Lazy Bone album from last year?
No, the most recent album.
Highly recommend it.
The most recent one I've heard was Busy Bone's last album, Carbon Monoxide.
Yes, how did you like that? I didn't hear that one yet. I gotta listen to that one.
I loved it.
I will be listening to that this summer because when there's a break in the podcast, I go back to the beginning and I go check everybody that I've done already to see if they've done anything else since I finished them, and I add that on to, so obviously he has another album that I'm going to have to add on to there in the summer, so.
Might actually have 2 other albums. I don't know. Bro.
He probably does, bro. He goes crazy with that shit.
Yeah, but a funny thing that I got introduced to him, this is before, I don't want to say before the internet. The internet was definitely around, but this was before, you just go and just type in whatever music you wanted to listen to. You didn't have access to the songs unless you had, Napster or Gazelle or whatever it was. But I remember, I never used to listen to rap. Wasn't really a big fan of it. I was... Same with me
until I was about 11.
Yeah, I would say around 12 or 13 this happened with me.
All right.
Or maybe 14, I don't know, around that time. But I remember I was sleeping, and I ended up waking up in the middle of the night. I don't even know why, but I couldn't go to sleep, and then I put on MTV. Remember when MTV used to play just music videos?
Yes. And especially at night, in the middle of the night, it would just be video after video.
Yeah, I was just about to say, especially in the middle of the night, that's all you would find on there. I remember putting on MTV, and there it was. It was Bone Thugs. It was First of the Month was playing.
Okay, all right, classic, obviously.
Well, what was funny was I just woke up, and the first thing I hear is, wake up, wake up.
It was fate.
Yeah, it felt like it. And
That's
I'm
funny.
just listening. I'm just like, wow, I just never heard a rap style like this before, the harmony.
The melody and the harmony, yeah, for sure, bro.
Yeah, I love the beat. I don't know all the lyrics still because of how fast they used to rap, but when I eventually learned the lyrics to all their songs, I felt like their lyrics were sick. I just loved everything about it when I first heard it, and ever since then, I never really stopped listening.
Well, I didn't know that, so that's a cool backstory for sure. I like that.
I never told you that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I ever heard that one before.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what else I used to do. One of the things I used to do back in the day is if I went to the mall, they had FYE, for your entertainment. I would go in there, and this is before YouTube. This is before all this shit.
Yeah.
And if I ran out of money, and then we were still chilling in the mall, a lot of times I would just go into FYE and scan a CD and listen to like previews
Yeah.
of the song. And there's a funny connection to another one of my favorite rappers, probably my favorite rapper right now. I would go into FYE, bro, and I would scan CDs.
Royce?
Even people I never heard of. I would just grab a CD and scan it.
He might have found Royce.
Yup. I scanned the Royce the 5'9" CD. Build and Destroy it was called. I loved it. I was just like, wow, this sounds like he's killing it. Like, holy shit. And
Royce is a special breed for sure.
Yep. But that's another little story behind FYE and me going to the mall and listening to music.
Cool. Yeah, I didn't know that either. That is a cool little backstory. Now, I kind of know the answer to this one. If you want to just give a cliche, flat out, clean answer, I already know the answer, but what members do you prefer in the group? Just for everybody that doesn't know.
Busy Bone is definitely my favorite.
Yep, I knew that.
I just felt like he was the most unique when I first heard him.
Because of his voice, probably, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. And it's just his style, his delivery. I loved it.
Yeah.
Still do. Especially when he drops something sick. Like, and I'm just like, wow, he went back to his roots for this.
Yeah.
But definitely Busy. Crazy is probably number 2. Lazy. And Flesh, it's a toss-up between Flesh and Wishbone, to be honest with you.
I agree.
Flesh was gone half the time because he was in prison.
Yep. We'll get into that in a minute for sure.
And Wish was, he killed certain songs, don't get me wrong. There's, like, on Ecstasy, he has one of my favorite verses. I love that song.
I would agree for sure that all 5 of them, no matter who finished where and no matter what lyrical scores they got, all 5 of them definitely annihilated some verses at some point, for sure.
Yeah. I think Wishbone was better to me in his younger days, and I just feel like he didn't really age as good as the other ones because Busy.
Fair enough, and I believe he's the only one that doesn't have any solo work too.
Yeah, and Busy, Crazy, and Lazy to me, like, they still are rapping. Like, they don't stop.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed by them in general, bro.
Yeah, bro. To me, like, they're sneaky. They're like a secret of rap because you don't hear about them that much. I mean, I heard about them because I'm following them, but I don't know. To me, they're a unique breed, and I think, obviously it's not everybody's cup of tea. Just like I'm sure if somebody heard me, they'll probably be like, "Oh, I just don't like it."
Yeah, nothing's gonna be everybody's cup of tea, bro. That's just the way it is. But they did well though. They had a good amount of success.
No, I again, as far as uniqueness and originality, I fell in love with it.
Can't deny that, bro. They definitely got good. All of them got good scores in that category, from what I remember. So I'm gonna say a little bit about kind of what we just talked about with you, where I'm gonna talk about. I don't have a history really with Bone Thugs the way that you do, but this is kind of a new thing that I've tried to incorporate more recently into my episodes, because everything that I'm doing in this study and everything on all of these episodes is just black and white. It's just facts. It's syllables counted, it's rhyme schemes counted, it's metaphors, it's punchlines, it's topics, it's originality. Like, these are just black and white things, and I never ever really involve my opinion in any of this at all. And I decided that since this is a podcast and stuff, and I am a human being, and I obviously do have an opinion, that I'll give a little bit of my background and my opinion on some of the artists if I have it, and then after that we can get into kind of the facts and the info on them and take my opinion out of it. So allow me to say that while I certainly wouldn't have ever called myself a Bone Thugs fan, I certainly also wouldn't say that I dislike them. When I started this study, I couldn't tell who was who at all on any songs. I'm perfectly aware now instantly of who's who. If I hear someone come on, I know right away which member it is. I was blown away by the amount of work that these guys put out, both collectively and individually. It took me over an entire month to get through the 5 of them, and I'm listening to like 2 albums a day. And it was quite the experience, I will say that. So
that's awesome. Well,
they are. Bone Thugs were an experience, and you understand that. Like, you sent me that video with the Ouija thing with the map on the back.
How how cool was that,
bro? But this group was they were very, very original, artistic, unique, and it was one of those things where, I mean, even you, bro, and this is not a knock. I'm not saying that everybody needs to do this, but I'm just saying that I listened to, from beginning to end, every single one of their songs in succession. Both Bone Thugs and then all 5 members, well, I guess 4 because Wish didn't have any solo stuff, but it was just, 2 Bone Thugs albums a day or every night for over a month. And it was quite the experience, bro. It certainly was.
Yeah. Well, to correct myself from earlier, Busy did have a second album, so I think you have 2 albums to listen to.
Yeah,
that's Carbon Monoxide, which I liked, and I also liked The Mantra, which came out in 2020.
I was going to say, I don't think I remember hearing about that one. The Carbon Monoxide one I remember hearing about, but I definitely will be listening to those 2 this summer.
Well, I like them both.
I bet you do.
Wow, I'm looking at all his solo albums, and they don't even have his mixtapes on here, bro. Like, crazy.
Well, what are you on? What are you looking at?
Wikipedia.
Yeah, well, did you go to the separate link of his discography, or are you just scrolling down?
No, I just clicked his Wikipedia just to see if I was right about his last album, and I completely forgot about The Mantra.
Yeah. To see the mixtapes, you would have to click on, there's a separate link, like a blue thing, it will say Busy Bone Discography. You'll have to click on that, and then they'll give you everything else in there.
Let's see. Studio albums, 18.
Bro, he's got a lot of shit, bro. A lot of shit. And that's just him. That's not even including any of the Bone Thug shit. Alright, so now let's get into some details and facts about the group as a whole before we get into any of the members individually. So, Bone Thugs and Harmony, who had their debut album in 1993. Their origins Cleveland, Ohio, United States. Genres are listed as hip-hop, gangsta rap, and R&B. Their years active are listed as 1991 to present. And their members are listed as Busy Bone, Wishbone, Lazy Bone, Crazy Bone, and Flesh and Bone. So, a little bit of a background on the group as a whole. Bone Thugs and Harmony is an American hip-hop group consisting of rappers Busy Bone, Wishbone, Lazy Bone, Crazy Bone, and Flesh and Bone. The group was signed to Ruthless Records in late 1993 when they debuted with their EP Creepin' on a Come Up. The EP included their breakout hit single Thuggish Ruggish Bone. In 1995, the group released its second album, E1999 Eternal, which included hits First of the Month and East 1999. So there you go, there's First of the Month for you right there.
Yup.
Their hit song, The Crossroads, a tribute to then recently deceased Eazy-E, won a Grammy Award in 1997. Bone Thugs and Harmony is the only group that has worked with Tupac, the Notorious B.I.G., Eazy-E, and Big Pun while they were all still alive. The editors of About.com ranked them number 12 on their list of the 25 best rap groups of all time, and MTV called them the most melodic hip-hop group of all time. In 2000, Bone Thugs and Harmony Resurrection reached platinum in 1 month, while 2002's Thug World Order received more moderate sales and promotion, going gold and peaking at number 3 on the top R&B hip-hop album charts. Due to conflicts within the group, longtime members Crazy Bone and Wishbone officially left the group in April of 2011 to work with their independent label, The Life Entertainment. They later returned, officially reunifying the group. In August of 2013, however, Lazy Bone announced that he was stepping aside to work more on his solo career. In the same month, Bone Thugs and Harmony signed with E1 Entertainment, formerly known as Koch Records, who they had previously partnered with to release 2006's Thug Stories. Lazy Bone has since reunited with the group, and they toured in 2018. So, a lot of different stuff there for Bone Thugs as a group. We definitely see some accolades and accomplishments with platinum records, hit songs, a Grammy Award, being named on multiple credible lists, some split-ups. Very, very interesting stat there, bro. Were you aware of that stat, that they're the only group to work with Biggie, Pac, Eazy, and Pun while they were all still alive?
I knew about Biggie, Pac, Easy. I wasn't aware of Big Pun, and I would love to hear what they did with him, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to look into that because off the top of my head, I don't really remember hearing any of that. It might be something that might have never came out, but they might have, I don't know, but I just think that stat, it's a cool fucking stat. I love stats. I know you love stats, so that's a cool statistic.
I did know that one.
That's cool. I mean,
I didn't know about Pun, though.
Yeah, I'll have to look into that because I don't particularly remember anything with Pun, but I'll have to look into it. I'll let you know. If I find anything, I'll send it to you. So,
All right.
now, let's get into the individual members of the group, starting with Flesh and Bone, as he was actually the first of the 5 to have a solo debut album out, which came out in 1996. Did you know that, bro?
That's an impressive stat because I would have never pegged him to have the first one.
I would have probably pegged him to have the last one, bro. I mean, I know obviously having studied them that Wish didn't have any solo work, but I mean, yeah, bro, I would have picked Flesh and Bone probably last, not only because of him being one of the least popular in the group, but like you said, he wasn't even around a lot of the time with being in prison and all that, so I definitely wouldn't have expected him to have the first solo album.
That's to me I'm like in shock right now.
Yep.
Never knew that.
Yeah. All right. So his birth name is Stanley House. Born June 10th, 1973. Origins Cleveland, Ohio, United States. Genres are listed as hip hop and gangster rap, and his years active are listed as 1991 to present. A little bit of a background on Flesh and Bone individually. Stanley House, better known as Flesh and Bone, born June 10th, 1973, is an American rapper and songwriter known as a member of the rap group Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. He is the older brother of Lazy Bone and cousin of Wishbone. I'm assuming you probably knew that, right?
Yep.
Okay. I mean, listen, a bit of personal information there on, Flesh and Bone with him being so-and-so's brother and being part of the group and things like that, but I mean, not much else there. He didn't really accomplish much individually outside of being in actual Bone Thug, so you're probably not going to see too much there on what's written on him. And then let's get into what I wrote down on Flesh and Bone when I was listening to him. I was very well aware of the group Bone Thugs-n-Harmony, but admittedly had only ever heard a couple of songs. Flesh and Bone is probably the least popular of the 5 members, having spent a decent amount of time in prison, and is not on as many songs as the others, and is even missing altogether from some albums. Flesh was one of the most inconsistent rappers I've ever seen to date. Not only with his flow, and from song to song, but even from verse to verse or bar to bar. Sometimes he was great, sometimes he was horrible, so much so that there were a handful of times that I went and checked the lyrics to make sure that it was him because it was such a 180 from the previous verse. He had the occasional dope line, but he struggled with his flow a lot and he took a lot of shortcuts and cop-outs. Verses also seemed to ramble on and there were times that he didn't rhyme. Overall, he finished average lyrically. Flesh qualified 6 hip-hop albums with Bone Thugs and 3 solo. Of the 9 albums, 6 were good and 3 were average. Of his 96 songs, none were great, 13 were good, and 3 were weak, with the rest being average. There's a bit of give and take with Flesh and Bone when it comes to impact, as he was really the least popular and successful member of the group and had no notable influences on any other hip-hop artists, but at the end of the day, he was still a part of a pretty big and successful group. While he wasn't the most original of the group, he still scored well in this department considering the overall originality of the group, especially with their sound and approach. So, anything that you would like to comment on about my write-up of Flesh and Bone there?
Nah, it seems pretty on point, to be honest with you. And I just, you did make me laugh in the beginning when you said most inconsistent rapper to date.
Bro, I'm telling you, it was really, really, really strange. Like we talked about it earlier about how, I said each one of them definitely had their points where they murdered something. Bro, this guy, it would be song number 2, and he would fucking snap on the verse. And then song number 3 would come on, and he just wouldn't even rhyme. And I'm like, I gotta go look this up. Like, this can't be the same guy that was just on the last verse last song. So, I don't know exactly what's behind that, but yeah, man. I mean, he was just incredible on some songs and really, really bad on other ones. So,
Well, to be honest with you, at this point, you've heard more Flesh and Bone than I have, because I haven't heard a single solo.
that's what I was going to say. I went really deep into each one of these guys' solo careers, so there definitely might have been some stuff on some of these other guys, like outside of Busy and things like that, you might not be really familiar with. But getting into the math on Flesh and Bone, so let's see how the math worked out for him. Like I said, he gets a 5 lyrics. He gets average. There was some really great verses, some really bad verses. That kind of stayed as a theme throughout with him, and it was just enough to just keep him at even. Albums, he gets a 3.70 with 0 classics. Songs, he gets a minus 0.31. So that's obviously not too big. I mean, he's losing a third of a point. It's not a full point. It's not even a half a point. But he's losing a little bit there where he could be gaining. Like I said, he had 96 songs. None of them were great. 3 of them were weak. And that's what that comes out to. So he loses almost a third of a point there. Impact, he gets a 5.5. Like I said, that's a little bit of a slippery slope with Flesh and Bone, because when you talk about Flesh and Bone individually, there's not much there. There wasn't any people that really sampled him or took anything from him, whether it be beats or lines or anything like that. So there wasn't any of that. You also have to factor in that even though he's in a big and pretty popular, successful, famous group, most people that know the group would not know this guy by name. And that's not me, trying to be a dick or anything. That's a fact. If I walked up to 50 people and said, do you know who Bone Thugs and Harmony is? And 35 or 40 of them said yes, I guarantee you not all 35 or 40 of them would be able to name Flesh and Bone as one of the members. So, you have to factor that stuff in, which would bring him below average. And then you also have to factor in that at the end of the day, bro, this guy was a part of Bone Thugs and Harmony. And Bone Thugs and Harmony as a whole certainly had an above average impact on hip-hop. So I think when you factor in both of them, he's not going to get as big of a score as some of the other guys, or as maybe the group as a whole would have got. But I still feel that he deserves to be above average in the impact score, just basically being based on the fact that he's part of the Bone Thugs and Harmony group, quite frankly. And then Originality, he gets an 8. Like I said, bro, you're not going to see any bad scores in Originality for any of these guys. Some of them were a little bit more original than others, which was sometimes due to how much they sampled or song topics that they had on maybe some of their solo albums and things like that were a little bit different than what the other guys were doing. But, I mean, he gets an 8. That's obviously a very, very good score. The best you can get is a 10. So you add all those 5 numbers up and you divide by 5, and you get a final score of 4.38, which leaves Flesh and Bone tied for 75th place of 163 artists done overall. So, not a great finish there for Flesh and Bone, but still in the top half of people done so far. So, hats off to him for everything that he's accomplished in his career. And now, on to one of your all-time favorites. Busy Bone, who had his debut solo album in 1998. He was the second person out of the group to have some solo work, which came out in 1998. So,
Heaven's Movie.
Is that what it was?
Yep.
Solid. He knows his Busy Bone. I'm impressed.
Hey, bro.
Solid. So his birth name is Brian Anthony McCain II, also known as R.I.P. and Little Ripster. Born September 12, 1976 in Columbus, Ohio, United States. Origins listed as Cleveland, Ohio, United States. His genres are listed as hip-hop, chopper, and Midwest hip-hop. And his years active in 1992 to present. So a little bit of a background on Busy Bone individually. Brian Anthony McCain II, born September 12, 1976, better known by his stage name Busy Bone, aka Little Ripster, is an American rapper, singer, and the youngest member of the Cleveland rap group Bone Thugs and Harmony. So I gotta ask, were you aware that he was the youngest?
Yes.
Fucking guy, bro. So there's not too much there on Busy Bone either, the same that there was with Flesh, aside from just personal stuff, but I do want to get into another side story about Busybone because I do feel that this is worthy of speaking on. So I'm going to add an extended clip here that I want to read that says, Brian Anthony McCain II was born in Columbus, Ohio. In 1980, 4-year-old Brian and his 2 sisters were abducted by their mother's boyfriend while their mother was at work and held captive for over 2 years. Brian recalls that at first he did not know he had been kidnapped and was made to believe that his mother and grandmother were dead. During the time he was abducted, he lived in many homes, apartments, cars, and motels, all in northern Oklahoma. He was often beaten, tortured, and sexually assaulted. In 1983, the family had been living on the Kaw Indian Reservation in Kaw, Oklahoma for about a year and a half. A babysitter saw his photo at the end of the made-for-TV movie Adam about the producer and creator of America's Most Wanted, John Walsh's son's abduction, and called the police, resulting in his return to his family. When he was 13, Brian began living with his older sister at her home near Cleveland, Ohio. During this period, he met Lazybone, Crazybone, Wishbone, and Flesh and Bone. Busybone started in hip-hop as a founding member of the group Bone Enterprise, which was formed in 1992. The group was noticed by one of the founders of the rap group NWA, Eazy-E, who modified the group's name to Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. So, the reason that I wanted to speak on that is because, number one, that's obviously a very serious and traumatizing thing for anyone, especially a child. So, if anyone listening deals with that or knows anyone that goes through that, hopefully, you can hear this guy's story and it inspires somebody to get help if that's what they need or whatever the case is. And on top of that, I felt it was relevant because if that never happened, if he was never kidnapped, he may not have ever met the other Bone Thug members, and maybe there was no either Bone Thugs as a group or a different cast of members, which is crazy to even think about because now, we're almost 20 years removed, or maybe it's over 20 years removed. We're almost 30 years removed now from these guys coming out, and to look at all that they've done, bro, and even your personal experiences, your nostalgia, and your history with these guys, that literally almost never existed. And you don't want to see anything terrible happen to anybody, but it is pretty crazy when you look at some of these stories with these people, not only what went on, but the fact that had it not gone on, some of these, there was another one, I don't know if you heard the episode, I believe it was Freddie Fox, a.k.a. Bumpy Knuckles, was supposed to have a meeting with Eric B. This was before Eric B. and Rakim formed. And they were supposed to be Freddie Fox and Eric B., or Eric B. and Freddie Fox. And he wound up not making the meeting, and Rakim came instead, and they were Eric B. and Rakim, who, as we know, Rakim is one of the most legendary rappers of all time, and that almost never happened had that guy showed up to that meeting. So I think little crazy things like that, when you hear these background stories, it's a little crazy to think that there almost was no Bone Thugs-n-Harmony, or there was almost no Busybone. It would have been different members. So that's hard to even wrap my head around, knowing what they've done, but fucking crazy story, man. I mean, I feel bad for the guy. It's obviously absolutely horrible. I know that you knew about that because I remember you telling me about that a very long time ago before I even started doing this study. So crazy shit there.
I just can't get over the person who spotted them on the television.
Yeah, right? That's another thing. Like, the odds of that person just having that on at that moment and saying, fuck, I know that kid. Crazy, bro.
Yeah, bro, just imagine that's before a time of social media.
Yeah.
Everything is instant now. This is
bro, forget about social media. You couldn't even fast forward or rewind the TV, bro.
No.
Like, you had to be looking at that direct instant to see that. Crazy.
Yep. It's so funny that you said this because me and Josie, we look back on something that happened, like right when we found out Josie was pregnant. Josie was worried about, things not going good. It was just a horrible situation, to be honest with you. And she typed in, like, when we were thinking about names, we were thinking about, what would we name a boy? And we were like, Angelo, what would we name a girl? Erin, We were like Aaron Angel, you know, we were debating back and forth, bro. And then she goes on to the Baby Genie, which is a website that if you type your last name in,
Yeah.
it'll give you what they think is the best name for your baby. Bro, she types this in, and I bring it up because we just saw it the other day, and you're talking about crazy things happening. And she has the screenshot, bro. I'm going to ask her to send me it so I can send it to you because it is wild. Bro, she types in my last name on the Baby Genie, and it comes out Aaron Angel Forminio.
Wow, that is pretty crazy.
Right?
Yeah.
What are the friggin' odds?
Yeah.
You know?
It's crazy.
So, it almost feels like everything has a small connection. Like, if this didn't happen, if something didn't happen miles away, who knows the effects? You know, I guess that's why, you know, time traveling.
Mm-hmm.
They say if you travel to the future, or I'm not sure if it's to the future or to the past, but if you touch something, it can like cause a chain of events that can change everything.
Yeah, that's the butterfly effect. You've seen that movie, right?
A long time ago.
Oh, that movie's fucking incredible,
bro. The butterfly effect, and I was on Facebook earlier today scrolling, and someone posted about the butterfly effect.
There you go, bro. I'm telling you, it can't all be a coincidence, bro. It's just too often that this all happens.
Yeah, but I'm happy that Busy Bone got out of it, though.
Yeah, for sure, bro. I mean, he could have fucking died. You know what I mean? Like, that could have been... Yeah, I mean, you fucking kidnap a kid, you molesting a kid. There doesn't seem to be a line for that person. You know what I'm saying? So, who the fuck knows? He tries to run away one day, maybe, and they catch him, and they fucking kill him. That's a fucked up scenario, bro. It's a really fucked up situation. And, you know, you can grow up, and you can be successful, and you can go on about your life, bro, but... You know, some things you can't undo. You know what I'm saying? That were done to you as a kid when your brain was forming and shit. You can't undo that shit, bro. You can never really get completely past it. It's always going to be there. You can really just work on your reactions to it, you know?
Yeah.
So, but let's get into what I wrote down about Busy Bone when I was listening to him, and I'm quite sure that I actually mentioned you in this write-up.
All right.
Busy Bone happens to be one of my cousin's favorite rappers, so it's actually quite a surprise that I didn't know more of him as I tackled Bone Thugs. While a lot of his rhymes did get random at times from bar to bar and he seemed to just rhyme words to rhyme words a lot, he did show the ability to use different rhyme schemes quite often. While he was very consistent with album scores, he was inconsistent from bar to bar, verse to verse, and song to song. Although he raps very fast most times, he did impressively show the ability to utilize many different flows when he wanted to, but became repetitive after a while and even recycled verses and entire songs. For the most part, he was able to keep a topic well, but said some very contradictory things way too close to each other and finished just above average lyrically overall. Busy qualified 8 albums and 1 EP with Bone Thugs, 4 collaborative albums with Lazy Bone as Bone Brothers, 17 solo albums, and 1 solo EP for an astonishing 31 albums in total.
Plus 2 more that you gotta tackle on.
Yeah, he can't be stopped, bro. All but 5 were good albums, but he seemed to struggle with really being able to string together a complete great album. Of his whopping 370 songs, only 1 was great and 3 were weak, with another 61 being good songs. While I wouldn't say Busy's impact trumped the groups as a whole, he was probably one of the most well-known and popular of the 5 members and had influences on artists such as Public Enemy, Dipset, Nori, Joe Budden, Nonfiction, Fort Minor, and others. Busy, like Flesh, may not have been the most original out of everybody in the group, but he did have a very unique sound and message. Anything that you would like to add or disagree with or highlight or anything out of that?
Well, I definitely think he had a few classic albums for me, but that's because I am a biased fan, I feel like. So it's hard for me to sit back and not think that something is classic because I really... certain ones.
Yes, I have to agree with what you're saying because I have albums, and I'll give you a perfect example because I just did it. Noriega's first solo album, Nori, to me is just a classic. It's probably one of my top 20 or 25 favorite hip-hop albums. Another example is Lil' Kim's first two albums, Hardcore and Notorious K.I.M. Those three are absolute fucking classics to me. Every single fucking song is amazing. The moment that one song comes on, it just gives me a certain vibe. It changes my mood. So that, in a classic in that way, I can totally understand where you're coming from. But neither the Nori or the two Lil' Kim albums scored as a classic in here, as my classic albums are just based off of strictly technicalities and not, any memories or anything like that. So I can definitely understand where you're coming from with that for sure.
I'm trying to think because I definitely want to give my input on Busy because he's been quite influential for me.
I bet, bro. I mean, you sound a little bit like him. Obviously not in content or message, but you have a similar voice and you're able to flow in a similar style. And aside from music, bro, I know because, I have certain people, Tupac, Eminem, Joe Budden, people like that, I was a young kid listening to these people, bro, and they influenced my life. I'm not saying whether it was positive or negative or whatever, but you know how it is, bro. There's nights where you're having a really fucking bad night and you go throw on some Wishbone or I go throw on some Tupac or some Joe Budden. And I know what it's like, bro. So I can totally understand how this guy had like an influence on your life and why you feel the way that you feel about him. And quite frankly, bro, we get stuck on words in this study a lot too, like classic and good and things like that, where those are kind of just words that I'm using to like try to explain. A classic album in this study is nothing more than scoring a 2.1 or higher. So everybody's always going to have their own versions of what's classic to them and stuff like that. And that's fine. I totally understand that. And even good, even the word good. It's like when you say good, what do you really mean by good? Are we talking like just lyrically, like how quote unquote good is somebody at rapping? Or when we say good, are we talking about something I enjoy? That was a fucking good album. I loved it. You know what I'm saying? So I don't want to get like too stuck on words in here. But yeah, man, let's get into the math of Busy Bone. And if you have anything to add on him at any point in the episode, bro, whether I'm doing the math or we're on to something else, just feel free to throw it in there for sure. Lyrics, he gets a 5.5. Albums, he gets a 3.84 with 0 classics. Songs, he gets a minus 0.05. So not even a tenth of a point. That he's pretty much almost even on that. And quite frankly, anything that he does, unless it's dramatic, like unless he's got 10 great songs on this new album or, 10 weak songs or something like that, his song score is not going to be affected much, bro, because of how many songs he has. You know what I'm saying? He has so many fucking songs that no matter what great ones or weak ones he has, that's going to be a small number no matter what, because it's going to come out to be such a small percentage out of, 370 songs, add 2 more albums on, you're probably looking at over 400 songs. So, and I'm sure there's more to come. I have no doubt about that at all.
Yeah. Well, bro, I'm not kidding. I remember this was way back in the day when I was really like a hardcore fan, and him and his cousin, I think, or him and one of his boys were on a radio station, and he goes, I already made 10,000 songs. He has and this was like years ago, so that means at this point he probably has 30,000.
Yeah, it's crazy, bro. It's definitely crazy. He bro, he's like a fucking fiend on drugs that like won't stop. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, bro, here's another funny story about him.
He can't stop.
He was walking. He was just walking the streets one day, just minding his own business. He had headphones on. He can't stop listening. He goes, I can't stop listening to music. And somebody in the car beeps at him, and they're like, "Yo, Busy, what are you doing?" Oh no, they didn't know it was Busy. They were asking him something, and he's just talking to them, and they're like, "Oh, what?" He told them, he's like, "I'm a rapper, I'm Busy Bone." And they didn't know, and they're like, "Oh, what do you listen to?" He goes, listening to some jazz right now, as he was walking.
That's awesome, bro. I love doing shit like that. I'm a fan of jazz. I like jazz music. I really like, 90s alternative and rock like that. I like a lot of 80s rock, too. R&B. indie pop. I like a lot of different shit, bro. A lot of different shit. So I can totally respect that, walking around listening to jazz. Probably fucking zoning out, loving it.
I'm pretty sure he was listening to jazz. I haven't seen the video in years, but I'm pretty sure I nailed it.
I mean, I could see him giving any random ass answer right there, bro. Busy Bone is one of those guys that when you ask him a question, like, he's liable to say anything.
Yeah.
So Impact, I gave him a 6.5, which is a full point ahead of Flesh and Bone. And that was kind of touched on in what I wrote down about them. Like I said, most people are not going to know who Flesh and Bone is. Not that separates Busy and Flesh by an entire point just by itself, but you have to take a lot of things into consideration. Busy is certainly one of the most popular in the group. Flesh is certainly one of the least popular in the group. Flesh is missing from some Bone Thugs albums altogether, and the ones that he is on is not as big of a chunk on the album as Busy Bone's work was. And then, like I said, bro, Busy Bone had 17 solo albums and everything else that he did with Lazy Bone and Bone Brothers and all that type of stuff, where Flesh and Bone only had, a minimal amount of work with Bone Thugs and then only 3 solo albums. So obviously the more that you put out is gonna help in some way to your impact score. Now, if you've put out 50 things and none of them sold, that's obviously not a great result, but you can understand what I mean. Bone Thugs had success. Whether Busy Bone had the success by himself that Bone Thugs had or not is not really the point I'm trying to make. It's that the man has had success and the man has put out a lot of material. And also, there were no direct influences for Flesh and Bone the way that there were for Busy Bone. Busy Bone directly influenced Public Enemy, Dipset, Nori, Joe Budden, Nonfiction, Fort Minor, and a couple of others that were kind of borderline. So there was definitely a bigger impact for Busy Bone than there was for Flesh and Bone, no question. And even though it's only a point, I'm saying that loosely because a point in here is big, bro. You're separating almost 500 people into a 10-point radius. So you got to understand how many people are going to be getting ties or be separated by 0.01 and things like that. So that entire point from 5.5 to 6.5 in impact is major, bro. Because Busy Bone could have had a bigger impact and still got a 5.5 because it wasn't quite big enough to bring him to 6. So being a full point ahead on that is pretty major. I just want to point that out, because it only seems like a point, but it adds up for sure. And then Originality, he gets an 8 as well. Like I said, bro, you're not going to see any negative scores at all from anybody in this group in the Originality department. It speaks for itself, bro. The guy is a character. He comes on a song. You may not, if you're not a Bone Thugs fan, you may not be able to say, oh, that's Busy Bone, as opposed to certain other people. Now that I've listened to them, bro, I mean, I'm sure this sounds the same to you. They don't sound anything like each other at all, now that I know who they are. It's easy for me to tell who's who. But people that aren't huge Bone Thugs fan, they might not know that it's particularly him, but you know that you're hearing the Bone Thugs sound. You know that you're getting that original sound. His image, bro, is another thing. I mean, whether he's rocking the fro or whatever the case is, it's not anything that's fucking out in left field. You know what I mean? He's not Bizarre from D12 and wearing a shower cap and smiley face boxers. I'm not trying to make it like, Busy Bone's an absolutely ridiculous character, but he was original enough, bro. I thought just, his voice and his delivery and his sound, a lot of his content too, which is something that you would kind of expect given that this man was kidnapped and molested as a child and shit. You kind of expect to hear something a little bit different come from this guy. But yeah, I thought he did a great job, bro. I thought he was very, very original. He gets an 8 out of 10 in that category for sure. I was impressed with him in that department above anything else. But he, overall, he was impressive regardless. And regardless of the numbers and the facts and all that I'm listing, me personally, I enjoyed listening to them more than I thought I would. I knew how much material they had, and I knew the sound that they had, and I was a little bit cringy going into it, bro. Not because I disliked them, but because I was like, wow, I'm going to have to listen to 67 albums in a row of this sound. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I never got tired of it, bro. I thought they did a really, really good job considering the amount of material they had that I listened to in succession. And, you know, aside from certain things, you know, I didn't fucking love every song. But in general, bro, I enjoyed most of them. Like you said, Flesh and Wish, I enjoyed a lot less. But Crazy, Lazy, and Busy were a joy to listen to for the most part. There was a couple of Busy things, bro, where I thought he really strayed. There were some albums where he was just repeating verses from other albums, and he definitely he definitely seemed like he had some moments in his career, bro. And this happened with Eminem too, where they almost started to make you nervous. Like, yo, is he okay? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I remember when I was younger and I bought the albums and I'm like, wow, they came out with more albums. And at the time, it's like, wow, no, I heard this shit before. But
Yeah.
you just did it on a different beat.
Yeah, so there was some points where I was listening where I could tell he was probably going through some personal things, and you know, the music took a little bit of a hit. Nothing was bad. He didn't have any weak albums or anything like that. Nothing was bad, but just maybe there were some that were not really up to par with some of his other stuff. You know, you could see his potential on some albums is the point that I'm trying to make, you know?
Yeah, well, I know he has one song that made the realness.
Yes, Hellified Game, one of my favorite songs of all time.
Yep, I'll never forget when we were chilling at my house that day, and I put it on for you, and you were just like, "Wow."
Yep, and that's just me. That's what we were just talking about before when you were talking about the classic albums. Hellified Game, while it might have been one of his better songs, I can't guarantee that that was the song that I gave a great song. I don't know for a fact off the top of my head right now that that was his best song. But for me, personally, that's my favorite Busy Bone song. And not only is it my favorite Busy Bone song, but like I said, straight up, that's one of my favorite hip-hop songs of all time. I would say that's in the top 100 for sure.
Oh, I fucking love that song, too.
Amazing song, bro. Love it. Absolutely love it.
Here's a funny fact, because you mentioned him not wearing a shower cap like Bizarre, but there are pictures of him wearing a shower cap back in the day.
That's funny, bro. I did not catch any of those, but he certainly is an original character for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
The difference with him and some of the other people that are kind of like that, like MF Doom is an example. He wore like a metal mask on his face. Bizarre just comes out in yellow boxers and a shower cap and shit like that. Those type of people, you can tell that they're being unique on purpose. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to make it sound the wrong way, but you understand what I'm saying. They know that any attention is good attention. So if they can draw attention to themselves, they may do better. And it's, well, I want to wear a fucking mask. I'm going to wear a fucking mask then, you know? And I'm not saying that it's not them, but it seems to be something that's done on purpose to generate attention, where Busy Bone doesn't strike me like that, bro. I feel like Busy Bone's originality is strictly just Busy Bone being him. I don't think he's ever done anything to generate more attention to himself. That's what I took from him anyway. I just take that he's just being him, and if he has a picture of him in a shower cap, that's because that's what he happened to have on when they were taking it, and he didn't give a fuck. You know what I'm saying?
He doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah, that's what I mean. His seems to be more about not caring what anyone thinks about his image, as opposed to doing something ridiculous on purpose to garner attention, you know?
Yeah.
So, you add all those 5 numbers up, you divide by 5, and you get a final score of 4.76, which puts Busy Bone in 46th place of 163 artists done overall. So that's about 10 slots behind Be Real, which is pretty crazy that these two guys are two of your all-time favorites, and I have absolutely pretty much zero history with either of them, and they both land right near each other. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So they're both inside of our top 50 so far, and we're past 1/3 of the way through. So both of these guys, bro, these are two of your favorite guys. Both of these guys should finish around the top 100 mark, which is fucking solid. So major shout out to Be Real, Cypress Hill, Busy Bone, and the rest of the Bone Thugs. And R. Formsy for being part of your personal favorites episodes. I think that this is an awesome thing that you've managed to get on here and have a little talk with us about some of your favorite guys and shit like that. I think it's cool.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a fun time. So now
we hopefully Busy can finish strong and impress you with the 2 albums.
Well, yeah, bro. Listen, if Busy has, if these albums score well, his lyric score could be changed, because if I remember correctly, and don't quote me on this, but this is just off the top of my head, and I've gathered a lot of fucking information over the past 5 years, so forgive me if I'm wrong, but I believe Busy Bone is close to getting a 6 lyrically. I believe he's more towards the upper half of the 5.5. So, listen, with 2 more albums, that's 30 songs or so, which comes out to almost 10% of what he's put out so far. So, if he's lyrically impressive on those albums, he could raise his lyric score. He could raise his album score. If he has even 1 great song, bro, 1 or 2 great songs on either of those albums, he erases that minus 0.05, which obviously is very minuscule, but maybe he makes it a plus 0.05, and that gives him a 1/10 of a point more. Impact, bro. By the time that I get up to some later artists, there could be things that people sample from this album. Or, this album may turn out to be one of those albums that ages really well, and 2 years, 3, 4, 5 years after it was released, starts to get better reviews, and his impact score gets raised. He could have a couple of insanely original song ideas on these albums, which is very possible with him, and he could get his originality score raised to an 8.5. Bro, if all of those things go up, even by a little bit, if his lyrics goes to a 6, and let's say his albums goes to a 3.9 instead of a 3.84. Let's say he gets an extra 1/10 of a point in the song category, gets a 7 on impact and an 8.5 on originality. Bro, he's going to be raised a pretty decent amount, and he's probably going to climb 10 to 15 slots in the thing, which would put him at 30. So, there's room for him, bro. If these 2 albums are solid albums, there's certainly room for him to climb a decent amount.
Well, I'm hoping the best for him.
Bro, I think it's very unlikely that they lower his score. Do they raise his score enough to really move him, more than 1 or 2 places? That remains to be seen, but I highly doubt that they're going to negatively affect his score, so I would expect him to move up no matter what.
I'm predicting a great song, Alpha Mentality. I love that song.
All right, fair enough. Okay, so let's get into our list now. We'll start with our top 15% overall. Now, there are no changes to this list today from the last episode, but you're not up to where I'm up to. So you're probably personally going to hear some changes today that you might not have heard before. So feel free to comment on anything that you like or anything that you don't like for that matter. But here's our top 15% overall so far. In our top spot, we have Black Thought of The Roots, who's in 7th place of 163 artists done overall. Directly behind him, tied for 8th place, we have Tupac. And then a couple of slots back, we have Pharoah Monch, who's in 10th place. A couple of more slots back from him, in 12th, we have KRS-One. And then we have Jizza, who's back in 14th place. In 16th place, we have Slick Rick. And then we have Rakim, who's in 18th place. Directly behind Rakim in 19th is Redman. And directly behind Redman in 20th is Common. Couple of slots back in 23rd, we have Rev Run of Run DMC. And then directly behind him is LL Cool J, who's in 24th. Directly behind LL in 25th is MF Doom. And directly behind him is Sticky Fingers of Onyx, who's in 26th place. Couple of slots back in 28th, we have Will Smith. And then behind him, we have a tie with DMC and Ice Cube, who are tied for 30th place and our last slot here. So 30th place of 163 artists done overall there. So, like I said, 100 artists covered so far up to today. There's your top 15 out of everyone that we've done, which is, it's really 16 names because you have that tie for 15th place with DMC and Ice Cube. But there's your top 15% overall. I know that you probably didn't hear that Black Thought was in the top spot, and you're probably not aware of Tupac. I don't know about Pharoah Monch, but I don't know who catches you as a major surprise out of that list. But there's our top 15% so far.
Sweet.
And then let's get on to our current top 10% lyrically, which is same thing with this list. No changes to this list today, but probably some news to you. So tied in our number 1 spot lyrically, we have Pharoah Monch and Black Thought. Both tied for our number 1 spot lyrically with lyrical scores of 8.5. Then behind them, we have a 3-way tie for third place between Master Ace, Jizza, and Common, who all have lyrical scores of 7.5. Then behind those 3, we have another tie for 6th place with KRS-One and Lord Finesse, both getting lyrical scores of 7. And then we have a 7-way tie for 8th place with Will Smith, Rakim, Cool G Rap, Everlast, Tupac, Redman, and Sticky Fingers, all tied for 8th place with lyrical scores of 6.5. So, not all that often that this list changes, although we have had some additions to it the past couple of weeks, but none here today. So, let's get into our particular decades list, starting with our top 5 rappers to make their debut in the 1980s. So these are obviously the legends that paved the way here, bro. Our top rapper of the 1980s is KRS-One. In 2nd place, Slick Rick. 3rd, Rakim. 4th, Rev Run of Run DMC. And 5th, LL Cool J. So no changes to that list today. That list very, very rarely changes. It may never change. But so far what we've done and where we're at currently in 2021, those are your top 5 rappers to make their debut in the 1980s. Absolute legends that paved the way there for sure, and I'm glad that we get to read their name off of the list every week. And now, on to our top 5 artists to make their debut in the 90s so far. Once again, there's no changes to this list either today. Our top rapper of the 90s so far is Black Thought. In 2nd place, Tupac. In 3rd place, Pharoah Monch. In 4th place, Jizza. And in 5th place, Redman. So, like I said, no changes to any of these lists today from the last episode, but definitely a couple of surprises for you personally, I'm sure. And if you'd like to see any of these lists in full, you can give the Facebook website a visit at www.facebook.com/taleofthetapes podcast. You can also give the host website a visit at www.anchor.fm/taleofthetapes. Both of those links are spelled completely normally. On the host website, you'll see a support button. Appreciate anybody that hits that, obviously. And now, before we get out of here, let everybody know if there's a way that they can reach you or listen to your music, follow you, etc., whatever it may be. YouTube link, SoundClick link, Facebook, Instagram, whatever the hell you got. Feel free to lay any of them out that you would like to give out to the general public. If you don't want to give anybody anything, fuck them.
No, I definitely would love to give people stuff because I'm all about giving. Aww. But YouTube, I know Facebook. If you go to Facebook and you just go to Forms Music, it should pop right up.
Okay, you have like a like page on there?
A like page?
Yeah, like is it a page that you can go like Forms Music, or is it something you have to add, or?
No, you can just go and like it, and
okay, cool.
You'll get all the updates. I have a YouTube channel. I'm on it, but I'm an illiterate when it comes to this stuff, so I don't see my link.
Yeah, well, I don't. You probably don't have one, bro, because you have to reach a certain thing on YouTube to get your own particular link. So you might not have like a personal link yet.
Oh, that's okay, because if you go and you just go to Forms Music on YouTube,
there
should pop up.
Yay!
Solid. So Forms Music is the search to throw in there for anybody that hasn't picked up on it.
Yep, that's basically it. And if you do follow me before, I don't know, I'm feeling that within the month, if you follow me within the month, you'll be lucky enough to hear the new DMX thing that I did.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to that. And I appreciate you hopping on here again, bro. You know, of course, you're obviously always welcome to come back. And I know it's a ways away right now, but if you want to join us for Royce and or maybe join a Lucas, we would certainly love to have you back.
Bro, there's so many rappers I like. Whenever you want me back, you tell me, throw out a guy's name, and I'll be like, all right, I'll come on for him.
Awesome, bro. If you have any recommendations of anybody that you particularly want, just let me know. And anytime I think there's somebody that might interest you, I'll run it by you. And if it works out, we'd love to have you back, of course.
I'll be back. Just like
Solid.
said.
Solid. And next week, we will be finishing off the rest of the group Bone Thugs and Harmony. Like I said, we're covering this group in the same fashion that we covered Onyx, since there are more than 3 members in the group who qualified and are being scored individually. Bone Thugs as a whole will have to be separated into 2 episodes. So next week, we will finish Bone Thugs and cover Crazy Bone, Lazy Bone, and Wishbone. And that's it for today's episode. R Formsy, J Formsy, Tail of the Tapes. Peace.
Out.
Tail of the tapes. Might as well. Better off. Out. What up, son? It's the tail of the tapes. The fuck life. Saying?
Alright, Tail of the Tapes, Season 2, Episode 23. Only one more episode left after this until our summer break. So we're very close to our summer break. It is super nice outside right now. I got every window and door open today, and I'm not shutting any of them. 3 Little Birds is by my doorstep singing sweet songs, so enjoy the sounds of nature in the background. Not all that many cars drive up my block, so it shouldn't be too much of a problem. And today we will be continuing and finishing Bone Thugs and Harmony. Since all 5 members qualified and we don't cover any more than 3 individual artists in any one episode on the show, the group obviously has to be broken down into 2 episodes. Last week we covered Flesh and Bone and Busy Bone, and we had my cousin R Forms on as a guest, so shout out to him. I always appreciate you coming on. And today we will finish the group with the 3 remaining members, Crazy Bone, Lazy Bone, and Wishbone. So, just going back a little bit from what we touched on last week, I wanted to let anyone know who either didn't tune in last week or forgot what was said or whatever. We covered the first 2 members of the group to have solo projects out, Flesh and Bone and Busy Bone. Flesh and Bone received a final rating of 4.38, which had him tied for 75th place of 163 artists done overall. And Busy received a final rating of 4.76, which placed him in 46th place of 163 artists done overall. However, since last week's episode, I have finished another artist who has finished ahead of both Flesh and Busy. So they are now in 76th place and 47th place of 164 artists done overall. So now, let's go back over some details and facts about the group again as a whole before we continue on with any of the other members individually. So Bone Thugs and Harmony, who had their debut album out in 1993. Their origins Cleveland, Ohio, United States. Genres are listed as hip-hop, gangsta rap, and R&B. Their years active are listed as 1991 to present. And their members are listed as Busy Bone, Wishbone, Lazy Bone, Crazy Bone, and Flesh and Bone, who obviously all 5 of them made the cut and are included in this study and will all be covered. So a bit of a background on Bone Thugs that we went over last week. We're going to go over it again at the start of this week here. Bone Thugs and Harmony is an American hip-hop group consisting of rappers Busy Bone, Wishbone, Lazy Bone, Crazy Bone, and Flesh and Bone. The group was signed to Ruthless Records in late 1993 when they debuted with their EP Creepin' on a Come Up. The EP included their breakout hit single Thuggish Ruggish Bone. In 1995, the group released its second album E1999 Eternal, which included hits First of the Month and East 1999. Their hit song The Crossroads, a tribute to then recently deceased Eazy-E, won a Grammy Award in 1997. Bone Thugs and Harmony is the only group that has worked with Tupac, the Notorious B.I.G., Eazy-E, and Big Pun while they were all still alive. The editors of About.com ranked them number 12 on their list of the 25 best rap groups of all time, and MTV called them the most melodic hip-hop group of all time. In 2000, Bone Thugs-n-Harmony Resurrection reached platinum in 1 month, while 2002's Thug World Order received more moderate sales and promotion, going gold and peaking at number 3 on the top R&B hip-hop albums chart. Due to conflicts within the group, longtime members Crazy Bone and Wishbone officially left the group in April of 2011 to work with their independent label, The Life Entertainment. They later returned, officially reunifying the group. In August 2013, however, Lazy Bone announced that he was stepping aside to work more on his solo career. In the same month, Bone Thugs-n-Harmony signed with E1 Entertainment, formerly known as Koch Records, who they had previously partnered with to release 2006's Thug Stories. Lazy Bone has since reunited with the group, and they toured in 2018. So, we obviously read that last week, but like I said, when we have to split groups up into more than one session, we're always going to start back off with the info and background on the group as a whole, regardless of how many episodes it takes to cover the entire group. I feel like that respect is deserved and it will be given. So, now let's get into some of the remaining individual members of the group, starting with Crazy Bone, as he was the first of these 3 members left to have a solo album out, which came out in 1999. So Crazy Bone's birth name was Anthony Henderson, born June 17, 1973 in Cleveland, Ohio, United States. His genres are listed as hip-hop, gangster rap, Midwest hip-hop, and horrorcore, and his years active are listed as 1991 to present. So a little bit of a background now on Crazy Bone individually. Anthony Henderson, born June 17, 1973, better known as Crazy Bone, is an American rapper, singer, producer, and entrepreneur. He is a member of the rap group Bone Thugs-n-Harmony. So, obviously not too much there on Crazy Bone, and to be honest, I think for the most part, that's probably what you're going to get from most members, as they seem to kind of have more success together than apart. Now, that's not to say that they were unsuccessful in their solo careers. That's not at all what I mean, but I didn't particularly notice or feel that any one member was above the group. You know, sometimes you see certain things where the group comes up and then one member is the front man, or one member just gets all the fame, or takes the reins, or whatever the case is, or his solo career actually becomes more successful than the group as a whole's career. So that really didn't seem to be the case with any of the members in Bone Thugs, as they all were successful, but they seemed to really be the powerhouse that they were when they were together. So I don't expect there to be too much on anyone's individual breakdowns. So now, let's hear what I wrote on Crazy Bone when I listened to him. In general, I would have said that Bone Thugs-n-Harmony were better as a group than any of its individuals. That was until I got up to Crazy and Lazy Bone's solo projects. Crazy was one of the top dogs of the group lyrically right out of the gate, and got better as time went on. He followed the same principles as most of the other members in the group, as they worked well as a unit, but he was usually on the upper half of that. He showed the ability to both tell stories and keep a topic well, and had his fair share of times where he went crazy on some verses, pun intended, finishing him above average lyrically. Crazy Bone was on all 10 Bone Thugs albums, plus their EP, and dropped another 7 solo albums, totaling him at 18. 2 of them were average, 13 were good, and 3 of them were great albums. Of his total 235 qualifying songs, only 3 were weak, while 5 were great, and another 62 were good songs. Crazy was one of the more impactful members of Bone Thugs, having been on the very high majority of their work on top of his solo projects, and having clear influences on the likes of artists such as Public Enemy, Dipset, Cuban Link, Jadakiss, and a few others. Between not borrowing too much from many other artists compared to his large body of work, coupled with some cool song ideas on some of his later solo stuff, he was also by a slight margin the most original of the 5 members. So let's get into the math of what I just wrote down there on Crazy. Lyrics, he gets a 6. Albums, he gets a 4.42 with 0 classics. Songs, he gets a plus 0.08. So that's less than a tenth of a point. Obviously, that's a very small number. We spoke about how the majority of the times when you get these guys with really large catalogs, like over 200 or 300 songs, I mean, we've had guys, 250, 300, 350. We've even had a couple of people with 400 and 450 songs and things like that. The larger your catalog is, the less that you're going to be affected by a single song, obviously. Now, 235 songs is a pretty decent amount of material. So if Crazy Bone came out with another great song, it might not even change that song score. It might stay at a plus 0.08. The point that I'm trying to make is it's a small number, but again, he does get a plus where other people are getting minuses and some people are getting big minuses. And he came to that number by only having 3 weak songs that were outweighed by 5 great ones. Impact, he gets a 6.5. Like I said, he was one of the more impactful members on Bone Thugs, and that was due to a combination of the number of artists he influenced. Now, I'm not saying that it's a tremendous list. You got Public Enemy, Dipset, Cuban Link, and Jadakiss that were, clear and direct. Some pretty good names on there. I mean, it's not, these are not underground or unheard of people or just, local friends that he had on songs that he influenced and things like that. I mean, those are decent names. There's not that many of them, but some of the other Bone Thugs members didn't have any names on their list. So comparatively to them, he did a little bit better in that sense. And it also has to be taken into consideration that he carried a very, very heavy workload for Bone Thugs and Harmony. This guy did a lot of their hooks. I'm not saying that he did all of them, and I'm not saying that nobody else did any hooks, but this guy did a lot of their hooks. He was on every single one of their albums, so much so that he was granted an album score for every single one of them. So not only did he make an appearance on every one of them, but he was on a large enough percentage of every single one of them for them to all count as album scores for him. And he was on the majority of them in general. He was probably on the most Bone Thugs and Harmony songs total out of any member. That coupled with what Bone Thugs and Harmony did as a group and the fact that he had an influence on a bigger number of people than most of the other members had, he gets a little bit higher of a score there with a 6.5. And Originality, he gets an 8.5, which, as I spoke about at the end of what I wrote down on him, he was by a very slight margin the most original of the group. Now, all 5 of these guys, very, very original artists. I believe maybe a 7 or a 7.5 or something like that is probably the lowest that anybody got as an originality score in this group. And even that, obviously, is still a very good score. But Crazy Bone able to take that a bit higher to an 8.5. And there was a couple of things that came with that. Now, obviously, we're going to start off here with where the group leaves off, right? The group had a pretty original sound. Pretty original delivery. We did have Twista out before them who did have the fast rhyming style, so they weren't necessarily the first people to rhyme fast like that as a style. Obviously anybody, I don't want to say anybody could rap fast, but if you're capable of doing it, you can make a song rapping fast. It doesn't mean that that's your style. Twista was probably one of the first people out that really patented that style to the point that you knew if Twista was getting on a track, he was spitting fast. That's what you expected from him. That's what you were probably getting from him. Same thing with Bone Thugs and Harmony for the most part. I mean, you know their style, you know their delivery, you know how they're going to come. They're very melodic. They're very, they have a lot of harmony, obviously names of Bone Thugs and Harmony, but very melodic and stuff, and usually very fast on most songs, all 5 of them. So obviously a style that these guys came with. So adding on to that, Crazy Bone was able to take this a level higher where he didn't really take many lines or samples or beats from other people. So you got to understand that certain members are not going to be on certain songs. So if Busy Bone and Lazy Bone are on a song on a Bone Thugs album and there's a Biggie sample on it, Crazy Bone, Wishbone, and Flesh and Bone are not going to be credited from taking something for Biggie because they weren't on that song with the Biggie sample or whatever it was. So there's different ways that people are influenced or influence other people. And then obviously you also have when people branch off into their solo projects and their solo work, there were some members that took a lot more lines or sampled a lot more things like that, whereas Crazy Bone did very little of that. on top of how original everybody in the group was as a whole. And then on top of those two things as well, he did have some really, really unique song concepts and ideas on some of his solo work. So I felt that out of the 5 members, he showed the most originality, even though they all were original. So that is quite the feat to be the most original in a group of 5 people that are all very original artists. So shout out to him for that, obviously. And then you add all those 5 numbers up and you divide by 5 and you get a final rating of 5.10, leaving him tied for 27th place of 165 artists done overall. So that's a pretty solid finish there for Crazy Bone, man. That's the highest finish so far of any Bone Thugs member. And not for nothing, but that's a pretty good score. And it should put Crazy Bone inside of that top 75 or so when this is all said and done. So impressive stuff there for sure by Crazy Bone. And let's see if he can hold on to his spot as the top Bone Thug as we get into the other 2 members left. And next we will get into Lazy Bone, who had his debut solo album out in 2001. And I just want to go on record here as saying that while this isn't going to have anything to do with how these guys were scored, I would just like to say that personally, Lazy Bone was my favorite of the group. I just enjoyed everything about him the most. Crazy Bone was a close second for me, but I just enjoyed everything about Lazy Bone. I enjoyed his content. I enjoyed his voice. I enjoyed his lyrical skill set. I enjoyed his solo work. I just really liked his sound, and that's not to say that I didn't like the other Bone Thugs members, but, you know, we had my cousin on last week, and obviously he stated that Busy Bone was his favorite. Lazy Bone was definitely my favorite, and I certainly didn't have a favorite at all. Not only did I not have a favorite going into this, but I couldn't really tell any of these guys apart. I probably could tell Busy Bone apart, and that really is just thankfully to my cousin, because my cousin just listened to Busy Bone so often that I just knew that voice. So when, you know, a Bone Thug song was on and Busy came on, I knew it was Busy because I was just so used to Busy's voice. But other than that, I really couldn't tell any of the other members apart, and I certainly didn't have any favorites or anything like that. But after listening to every Bone Thugs album and EP and stuff like that, and then all 5 members, or I guess I should say 4 because Wish didn't have any solo work, but, you know, the other 4 members' solo work, Lazy Bone definitely was my favorite of the group. So I just wanted to get that out there and give a little bit of my opinion on the matter before we get back into the factual stuff. So, Lazy Bone, birth name, Stephen House, also known as the number 1 assassin, L. Burner, and Lil Lazy. Born September 23rd, 1974 in Cleveland, Ohio, United States. His genres are listed as hip-hop and gangster rap, and his years active are listed as 1991 to present. So let's get into a little bit of a background now on Lazy Bone individually. Stephen House, born September 23rd, 1974, is a rapper known primarily for being a member of the group Bone Thugs and Harmony. He has also gone by the names L. Burner and the number 1 assassin. He is the younger brother of fellow group member Flesh and Bone and cousin of group member Wishbone. Lazy is also a member of the rap group Bone Brothers and CEO of the record label Harmony House Entertainment. So, a little bit more there for Lazy, but again, not too much on him individually, so let's get into what I had to say about Lazy Bone when I was listening to him. As a relatively new listener and one who couldn't tell which member was who at the start, it became apparent extremely early on that Lazy Bone was going to be the best member lyrically. He was great at using different rhyme patterns. He was also very good at being able to hold a topic and showed the ability occasionally to tell stories. He went absolutely nuts on some verses or songs, especially later on, and it makes me wonder why it is that he's not specifically talked about more. Overall, he finished well above average lyrically. He qualified 25 albums in total. He was on 9 of the 10 Bone Thugs and Harmony albums, 1 EP, 4 with Busy Bone as Bone Brothers, and 11 solo albums. Of those 25 albums, 24 of them were good and 1 was great. To not even have one single average album, let alone a weak one, out of 25 total albums is extremely impressive. Of his massive 331 song total, not a single song was weak, 6 were great, and 86 were good. Between his majorly consistent effort with Bone Thugs, his large body of work, and influences on artists such as Public Enemy, Dipset, and a few others, he was also one of the more impactful members in the group. While overall he was still very unique in many ways, he did borrow a lot from other artists, particularly Biggie and Tupac, giving him the lowest originality score of the group. So let's break down the math on what I just said. Lyrics, he gets a 6.5, which is a half a point higher than Crazy Bone, and as I said, that is the highest lyrical score that any member received in the Bone Thugs and Harmony group. So shout out to Lazy Bone for that for sure. Let's see if that fact can carry him to the highest finish. Albums, he gets a 4.34 with 0 classics, so he gets a slightly lower score than Crazy in the album department. So it's not enough of a point pickup by Crazy to make up for the half a point lyrically. As you can see that Crazy's album score was a 4.42, which is a 0.08 higher than Lazy's album score, which is a 4.34. So very, very slight difference there. Crazy gets the plus 0.08 in his song score, which would actually even out the 0.08 that Lazy picks up on the album score, but Lazy winds up getting a plus 0.18 in his song score as opposed to a plus 0.08. So Lazy Bone picking up another 1/10 of a point on Crazy Bone there in the songs category. And the way he was able to do that is, like I said, he had 6 great songs as opposed to 5 great songs for Crazy Bone. So 6 great songs for Lazy, but Lazy had more songs. So 6 great songs out of 331 songs is a lower percentage than Crazy Bone's 5 great songs out of 235 songs. But what happens is Crazy Bone also was on 3 weaker songs, whereas Lazy got no weak songs, which is in itself insanely impressive. 331 songs, and not once did this guy make a weak song. So again, his total number of great songs higher than Crazy's, his percentage of great songs lower than Crazy's, but no weak songs where Crazy did have 3 of them. So Crazy lost some points there. Crazy still managed to stay plus, but not as high of a plus as Lazy. Impact, Lazy gets a 6.5, which is the exact same score that Crazy got. Like I said, these guys were 2 of the more impactful members. They really had a lot of material. Busy Bone had an extreme amount of material too. Crazy, Lazy, and Busy had the most material out of anyone in the group. Lazy also a little bit smaller of a list influence than Crazy. You know, only a 1 name difference, but still a little bit smaller, but almost the same exact thing. I mean, not big enough of a difference there for him to lose any points. So he stays at a 6.5, the same as Crazy Bone. And then Originality, Lazy gets a 7.5. So that answers that question that we were just talking about before about what the lowest Originality score in the group was. So I said that Lazy got the lowest Originality score in the group, and he still gets a 7.5. So very, very original group here for sure. Very unique band of characters here, all in their own right. But Crazy did enough for him to rise a little bit higher than the other 4 members in the group when it came to Originality. And on the flip side, Lazy did just enough to just barely get the lowest score in the Originality. And like I said, that was mostly due to the fact of how much stuff Lazy took from other artists, whether it was lines that he repeated or, you know, times that he sampled Biggie or Tupac. And I'm not trying to shit on Lazy at all. 7.5 is still a great score for Originality. He was still a very, very original artist. And listen, we spoke about the fact in the Bone Thugs and Harmony breakdown about how they were the only group ever to work with Biggie, Tupac, Easy, and Pun while they were all still alive. So they were close with Biggie and Pac. I understand why he was repeating lines or sampling them a lot, and you know, he's paying homage to his brothers, paying respect to his brothers, and I'm not trying to knock that at all, but I just do have to point out the things that separate a little bit. When Crazy branched off into some solo work, he really went above and beyond with some really, really unique and original song ideas and hardly sampled anything at all. Whereas Lazy just took a little bit of a different route, and he did have some unique song ideas and still remained a very original artist, but, you know, threw a lot of samples on songs or repeated lines and things like that. So only a 1 point difference. You know, Crazy gets the highest score in the group at an 8.5, and Lazy gets the lowest score in the group at a 7.5. So not much wiggle room there. The other guys probably fell in the middle with 8s. Super original group, like I said. So you add all those 5 numbers up and you divide by 5, and that gives you a final rating of 5.00, which puts Lazy Bone in 30th place of 165 artists done overall. So just a couple of slots behind Crazy Bone overall, literally just 3 spots, but Lazy does manage to get the highest lyrical score in the group, and it's interesting how these guys had such different scores in each category, just talking about everybody in the group. Lyrics, they all got different scores, originality, different scores, impact, different scores, songs, albums, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, none of them have really finished very far from each other overall, and obviously worked extremely well together. And what I also think is interesting is how we were comparing Lazy and Crazy scores, right? And, lyrics, Crazy 6, Lazy 6.5. So Lazy's up by a half a point. Albums, Crazy 4.42, Lazy 4.34, almost the same thing. Songs, Crazy gets a plus 0.08, Lazy gets a plus 0.18. So another tenth of a point, which, evens out for the album thing. So Lazy's still up by about a half of a point here. And then Impact, they both get 6.5, so that keeps them even. But then we see what wound up separating them was the 1 point in originality, which, like I said, mostly came due to what Crazy Bone did on a lot of his solo work and how many times Lazy Bone was sampling and, borrowing lines and things like that. And even at the end of the day, that full point that Crazy winds up being ahead of Lazy by, that only results in a 0.1 in the final score, which only results in 3 places. So again, it goes to show you how small the margin of error is here and how every little thing that you're doing is contributing in some way. And it's another example of how I told you when I started to read my breakdown of Lazy, how Lazy was my personal favorite member. He just, it's just who I prefer. It's who I like the most out of the group. And he didn't finish at the top. Crazy did. So overall, it's very slight. It's very, very close. I wouldn't mind anybody interchanging these two guys and saying, I probably got Lazy at 25 and Crazy at 32. That I have no argument with that, bro. This is just pointing out how these guys are right there in the same, one album can change that score. Crazy can come out with an album, Lazy can come out with an album, and that could certainly carry somebody 3 places or a 0.1 or whatever it is, whether, it brings one guy's score down or one guy's score up. But at the end of the day, Crazy does, at least for now, finishes right on top of Lazy. So, I'm forced to eat my words again a little bit. My favorite, even of this group, doesn't finish at the top of this group, but I enjoyed the group as a whole, and I have no problem putting the guys where they belong, and we'll see if they come out with anything else in the future that changes any of these scores. But for now, let's get into the final Bone Thugs member, Wishbone, who I don't think he had any solo work. Now, I've looked into this multiple times. I looked into it before I did Bone Thugs and Harmony. I looked into it while I was doing Bone Thugs and Harmony. And I looked into it about a week or two before recording this episode. I did see one thing somewhere on the internet that does say that Wishbone does have one solo project. But I only see that on one site. It doesn't seem to be a credible source. And I can't find the album anywhere. Any credible sources that I do find don't have Wishbone having any type of solo project. So he will be the last member that we cover here. And his birth name is Charles C. Scruggs Jr., born February 17th, 1975 in Cleveland, Ohio, United States. His genres are listed as hip-hop and gangster rap, and his years active are listed as 1991 to present. So a little bit of a background on Wishbone individually. Charles C. Scruggs Jr., born February 17, 1975, is an American rapper. He was part of the Grammy Award-winning group Bone Thugs and Harmony and is the cousin of Lazy Bone and Flesh and Bone. Apart from rapping, he is a successful entrepreneur and co-founded Thug Line Records. So, I will tell you that it was much more difficult for me to find information on Wishbone than it was for any of the other 4 members by far. So, not much else here on Wishbone, so let's just go right ahead and read what I wrote down on him. Lyrically, Wishbone was the worst member of the group. Though he did have some good lines and showed the ability to keep a topic, he also didn't rhyme at times and struggled with his flow. He did also show the ability to tell a story, but he took a lot of shortcuts and finished just below average lyrically. Wishbone qualified 9 albums, all of which were with Bone Thugs. 7 of those 9 were good and the other 2 were average. Of his 97 songs, none were great, but 3 were weak, while another 28 were good, and quite frankly, his song score was heavily carried by Crazy and Lazy Bone on many occasions. He really only had clear influences on Public Enemy and Dipset and had no solo work, but was still part of a big and major group. Overall, Wish remained original with his words, melodies, rhyme style, and overall sound, as did the rest of the group. So, probably the least information, whether given by the internet or given by me, that we're going to get out of all the members here. And like I said, it's kind of warranted. He was on really the least amount of work out of the group, I believe. Had no solo work at all that I could find. Probably the lowest total number of songs. Not even really on every single Bone Thugs-n-Harmony album, at least not enough to qualify for an album score. So you can see how he put a lot less out, and in turn, we put a lot less out on him. So getting into the math of what I just read, lyrics, he gets a 4.5. Like I said, he was just under average lyrically. Albums, he gets a 4.03 with 0 classics. Songs, he gets a minus 0.31. So we spoke about the other guys. Crazy Bone also had the 3 weak songs, which very possibly could have been the same 3 songs that Wishbone was on. I don't know that for a fact, so don't quote me, but it does seem a little bit odd that Wishbone didn't have any solo material and has the same amount of weak songs as Crazy Bone. So, again, don't quote me on this, but if I had to guess, it was probably Wishbone that maybe brought Crazy down on some of those songs. I don't know if Flesh was on them and he did it. I can probably guarantee you that Busy or Lazy did not bring any song scores down. As I told you, Lazy was a part of no weak songs, both by himself and with the group. So, like I said, a little bit odd with me talking about how Crazy and Lazy carried Wish on many occasions, and now, Wish having no solo work and the same amount of weak songs as Crazy. But the difference is, Crazy was able to overcome that negative score with 5 great songs, whereas Wish didn't have any great songs. So, same number of weak songs as Crazy Bone, much less work as a total body of work, 97 songs as compared to 235. So, even if Crazy Bone didn't have any great songs at all, the same as Wish, and they both had the 3 weak songs, Wish would obviously get a higher minus anyway, because 3 weak songs is a higher percentage of 97 than it is of 235, obviously. So, he gets that minus 0.31 there, where the other guys were plus. Impact, he gets a 6. Not too much lower than the other guys. I mean, like I said, it wasn't like any of these guys went off by themselves and had this tremendous solo success that trumped the group. So you're not really going to see anybody get like an astronomically high score than the other in this category, but you definitely will see some people get a little bit higher than some others, depending on maybe how many people they influenced, or how big of a hand they had in the group, or how much material they put out and things like that. So, we spoke about this a couple of times. Wish pretty much on like the least amount of material, didn't have any solo work and stuff like that. So only Public Enemy and Dipset were the clear influences, which is, Lazy had 3 people, Crazy had 4. So you could see Crazy influenced 4 people, Lazy influenced 3 people, Wish influenced 2 people. So there's no major difference, but it is a little bit of a difference. So it's just a half a point. He gets a 6 where the other guys get a 6.5. But he also got worse scores in the other 3 categories, so he keeps climbing down here a bit. And then Originality, he gets an 8, which, like I said, is, you're going to be hard-pressed to give this guy any other scores than really what the group was doing as a whole, right? Because this guy didn't have any solo material. So, you got Crazy, who climbed a little bit above that 8 with his solo work, and Lazy, who dipped a little bit below that 8 with his solo work. Wish didn't have any solo work. So he kind of just stays at the 8 with the group. They were a very original group. And you add all those 5 numbers up and you divide by 5, and it gives you a final rating of 4.44, which leaves Wishbone in 73rd place of 165 artists done overall. So, not one of the top members of the group, but a solid finish still nonetheless. I mean, that puts all 5 members of the group inside the top half so far. And that's pretty impressive. I mean, it's not easy to do something like that. It's not easy to even have a group with 5 people and stay together. You know, you see 2 people feud and break up, 3 people feud and break up. And I was in a group, so I understand this. It's, you know, it's similar, like, and I'm not trying to put the level of importance at the same thing here, but I'm just trying to make a comparison. It's similar to having a kid. You know, you can have a great relationship with somebody, and then you guys are together for years, and then you have kids, and it's, well, I want my kid vaccinated. Hell no, my kid ain't getting no shot, right? And then what? Like, the kid's either got to get one or not, and it's your kid and it's her kid. So you run into shit like that where you're not willing to budge, and it's like, no, he's not. She's like, yes, he is. Whatever it is, or vice versa. It could be any issue. It could be religion. Maybe you guys are 2 different religions, right? And it was totally cool. I don't care. I don't mind what religion you are. It's cool. I'm Jewish and Muslim. I love you. I don't care, right? But what about when you have a kid, and you want the kid to be Jewish now, and she wants the kid to be Muslim? So it's these problems that sometimes you can't foresee that you run into, that, like I said, you're just unwilling to budge, and that's where the splits happen. And I was in a group. I was in a group with 4 people, which is less than 5, obviously, and I know the problems that we had. We were together for about 2 years, and just a lot of business problems, just a lot of disagreements on what to put out, when to put it out, what direction we were trying to go as a group, what our goal was, you know, things we agreed on, work ethic, work rate, and, you know, it's not easy, man. It's not easy when one guy, man, fuck that record label. We should go sign at this one. You know, so we're going on 30 years here. 1993, we're in 2021. So in 2 more years, it'll be 30 years that this group has stayed together. And that's an impressive accomplishment on its own. Forget about the awards that they've won and how many records they've sold and all that type of stuff. To be a 5-man unit and stay together for almost 30 years is insanely impressive, on top of everything that they accomplished. And now in my study, it looks like we're going to wind up having every single member of the group finish in the top half overall. So major shout out to Bone Thugs and Harmony as a group for sure, man. I'm certainly not as big a fan of them as my cousin is, but I did enjoy listening to them. I enjoy their sound. I don't like every one of their songs, but they definitely have a fair amount of material that I thoroughly enjoy listening to. So, like I said, shout outs to each member in Bone Thugs and Harmony. That's a very impressive feat and finish by all 5 members there for sure. So, since we've gotten out of the way that all 5 members have finished in the top half, and you know, that's a good thing, and I've congratulated and acknowledged all 5 members, I just like to do this when we finish covering a group. We gotta put the group members in order, because this is part of what goes on. Like I said, this is never to pin anybody against each other, right? But part of the reason why I'm doing this study to begin with is because these are the conversations you have, bro. This is the barbershop talk, you know what I'm saying? This is, you know, we're going to smoke a blunt. Who you got? Who's your top 3, bro? Who you think? Who's the best 3 from New York? Or who's the top 5 from the West Coast? These are just endless conversations that go on when you're a hip-hop fan. So we have to have this one, right? We just did Onyx a couple weeks ago. Oh, well, give it to us, bro. Who's the best member in Onyx? It's Sticky Fingers, bro. It is. You know, that's just the way it comes out. Now, I'm going to ask you, when you ask me who's the best, right? Well, I'm going to ask you, well, what do you mean? Like overall? Sticky Fingers. Well, what about lyrically? That was also Sticky Fingers. But not always the case in every group, right? Prime example here, Crazy Bone. Didn't get the number 1 lyrical score. Lazy Bone did, but Crazy Bone finished higher overall. So when you ask me that question, who's the best in the group, I'm going to ask you, you know, are we talking lyrics or overall? And then I will give you my answer based on that. But since we did just finish this group here today, I am going to put the members in the order that they finished overall. So out of your 5 Bone Thugs and Harmony members, this is the order in which to place them. Crazy Bone, Lazy Bone, Busy Bone, Wishbone, Flesh and Bone. So, like I said, man, all 5 members finishing in the top half. Very impressive. I personally enjoyed their sound and what they brought to the game. So, shout out to Bone Thugs and Harmony as a whole, man. Very, very impressive hip-hop group with an extreme amount of material and longevity. So, now let's get into our list. We'll start off with our top 15% overall, And there are definitely a lot of changes to a lot of these lists today. So, in our top spot, we still have Black Thought of the Roots, who is in 7th place of 165 artists done overall. Directly behind him, tied for 8th place, we have Tupac. And then behind Tupac is Pharaoh Monch, who's in 10th place. Back in 12th place is KRS-One. And then behind him is Jizza in 14th place. Back in 16th is Slick Rick. And behind him is Rakim, who's in 18th place. Directly behind Rakim in 19th is Redman. And directly behind Redman is Common, who's in 20th place. A couple of slots back from Common, in 23rd we have Rev Run of Run DMC. And then directly behind him is LL Cool J, who's in 24th. Directly behind LL Cool J in 25th place is MF Doom. And then behind MF Doom, we have a tie for 27th place between Sticky Fingers and Crazy Bone. Then, in our last and final spot is Will Smith, who is in 29th place of 165 artists done overall. So, last week, our last spot named was 30th place. This week, it's 29th place because Crazy Bone finishes above there. In turn, he prevents Lazy Bone from cracking our top 15 because Lazy Bone finished at 30th place. And DMC of Run DMC and Ice Cube were in our last spot, but they were ousted from this list today because Crazy Bone finished up there. So an odd sequence of events here. We see who was tied with Sticky Fingers, and it was Crazy Bone. So we have Crazy Bone and Sticky Fingers tied for 27th, which in turn makes the 30th place slot, Lazy Bone, be slid off of this list. So Lazy Bone really never getting to make this list. He kind of should have been in there, but because Crazy Bone happens on the same episode and he finishes above him, he squeaks him out for that place. So we'll have to see if Lazy can work his way in here soon. We'll have to see if DMC and Ice Cube can get their way back in there, but they are out for now. I believe that is the first time ever that they have been ousted from that list at all. We have been saying those guys' names on the top list since the 80s, so major shout out to them for sure. We now have Will Smith, who's in our final spot. So he's hanging on to our top 15% there. He's another guy from the mid-80s who we've been saying his name every week since the mid-80s. So he is now hanging on to our last spot there. So we'll see what happens going forward. But interesting stuff with what happened there on our top 15% overall today. Now let's move on to our current top 10% lyrically. And we have another addition to this list today here as well. So tied for our top lyrical spot, we have Pharaoh Monch and Black Thought with lyrical scores of 8.5. Then behind them, we have a three-way tie for third place between Master Ace, Jizza, and Common, who all have lyrical scores of 7.5. Behind them, we have another tie for sixth place with KRS-One and Lord Finesse, who both got lyrical scores of 7. And then behind them, we have an 8-way tie for 8th place between Will Smith, Rakim, Cool G Rap, Everlast, Tupac, Redman, Sticky Fingers, and Lazy Bone. So a little bit odd how we have a 3-way tie for 3rd place and an 8-way tie for 8th place. I just, maybe I'm a fucking weirdo. I shouldn't say maybe I'm a weirdo. I'm definitely a fucking weirdo, but maybe my weirdness contributes to how much I care about shit like that, but that's just so fucking weird to me. Like a 3-way tie for 3rd place and an 8-way tie for 8th place. What are the fucking odds of those numbers? After all these fucking people that I've studied, that I've gone through almost 5 years, 4.5 years I've been doing this shit. And, 165 people. And on today, that just happens to line up like that. I think that shit is pretty crazy. I'm not saying it means anything. I'm just saying I think it's pretty crazy. So Lazy Bone now makes his way into our top 10% lyrically, as he is the only Bone Thugs and Harmony member to do so. So shout out to him for that. He was impressive lyrically for sure, to say the least. And now let's get into our particular decades list, starting with our top 5 rappers to make their debut in the 1980s. So your top 5 rappers of the 80s are KRS-One, Slick Rick, Rakim, Rev Run of Run DMC, and LL Cool J. So as usual, no changes to that list today. Don't expect that list to change anytime soon. And now on to our top 5 artists to make their debut in the 90s so far, and there aren't any changes to this list today. So, in our top spot of the 90s so far, we have Black Thought. Behind him is Tupac, then Pharoah Monch, then GZA, then Redman. So, big changes to our top 15% overall and our lyrical list, but no changes at all in either of our top decades lists. So, you can really see over the past month or so how hard it's becoming now to crack this top 5 rappers of the 90s list as we get into the mid-90s here now. So that's interesting to me. We've had this happen a couple of times now where we've had people crack our top 15% overall list and or crack our top 10% lyrical list and still not come in that top 5 of the 90s. So we're definitely starting to see more of that pattern fill out where, yes, there were some really, really rough artists in the 90s who are finished way in the back of our study. But these top 90s guys, man, I mean, they are just really, really difficult to top. So, you know, people are getting in the overall list and still not making the top 5 of the 90s. So that list, you can tell how that list is starting to become a special one. We've had that list stay the same for a while now, which is crazy because we're not even halfway through the 90s. So when you think about it, there's only so many people done in the 90s so far. So you don't even really have to be in, like, let's say the top 10%, because I haven't even done 50 people so far. But the problem is the competition. Those top guys in the 90s are just so fucking good that we're seeing that list is starting to look really important and relevant now. And we'll see going forward. We're getting into our mid-90s now. We're in 1993. We're getting very close to 1994. So we're pretty much officially in our mid-90s now. And I'm curious to see if these guys can hold on to their top 5 of the 90s and if they can hold on to their top spots overall. So if you'd like to see any of the lists in full, you can give the Facebook website a visit at www.facebook.com/taleofthetapes podcast. You can also give the host website a visit at www.anchor.fm/taleofthetapes. Both of those links are spelled completely normally. On the host website, you'll see a support button. Definitely appreciate anybody that hits that button and sends anything to me. Thank you very much. And that's about it for this week on Tale of the Tapes, man. Next week, we have Fat Joe and 8-Ball and MJG. So, two relatively opposite but popular in their own region type of guys. So, that's not to say that they didn't have any commercial success, but, you know, you go into the BX, Fat Joe is going to be a lot heavier in there than he is around 8-Ball and MJG parts, and vice versa. You go to, you know, where 8-Ball and MJG are from, and they're going to be much more prominent than Fat Joe probably is there. So, this should be an interesting one. Tale of the Tapes. Peace.
Tale of the Tapes. Might as well.